Hey guys, what's up? Today I want to show you 5 underrated games on the PlayStation. That's right, 5 games that in my opinion didn't get enough love or nowadays are more like forgotten games. Some of them back in the day were used to be somewhat popular, but today it's like no one remembers them unless someone brings them up in a conversation. And the others, I don't think they ever got the attention they deserved. Therefore, these 5 are underrated in my opinion. So let's begin! Number 5. Alone in the Dark, The New Nightmare. When people think of survival horror games on the PS1, Resident Evil, Silent Hill, or Dino Crisis come to their mind. Not Alone in the Dark unless you bring it up and then they'll say, oh yeah, that too. It's kinda niche compared to those other popular games since it's more cryptic and definitely harder. It belongs to a franchise created by a French studio called Infogrames. The first game for PC and 3DO is considered as one of the fathers of the survival horror genre. Actually, the first Resident Evil took influence from it. This is the 4th title in the series and it's basically a reboot. It was released on the PS1, PC, Dreamcast and even the Game Boy Color. A PS2 version also exists, but only in Europe, and I feel that's where this gem got more recognition. It was a massive hit when it first came out, and a lot of people played it. Eventually, other horror franchises took over, and this one got lost somewhere around the road. You choose between 2 main characters, each one controlling differently and starting in a different part of the mansion. The goal will be to solve the mansion's mysteries that connects their purposes to a personal level of each character. The game's full of hardcore puzzles, leads that you'll have to investigate to progress, and of course, horrendous creatures that always seem to work better in the dark. I suggest you start with Edward, cause he has the means to fight them early in the game. The girl's route I felt to be much harder. Overall, it's slightly outdated today, but it will definitely scare you way more than any other horror game of its time. Number 4. Rival Schools. You'd think Capcom fighting games are far from being underrated, but I believe this one only succeeded greatly in Japan. When they brought it to North America, barely any marketing was done and the game got crushed precisely by other Capcom releases. A wide variety of characters and modes await you, including tournaments and training modes. The story mode is interesting as you can create and customize the appearance of your main characters. They can be from the same school or from a different one, and the story will progress depending on that. Prepare for a lot of reading since it does focus regularly on the plot. There's also the usual arcade mode or the 2 players mode. Characters have 2 punches and 2 kicks assigned to their buttons, and they can also execute certain combos with them. Evasion can be done swiftly by pressing the right trigger, while the second triggers activate special attack. There's also some attack cancels and counters like in most Capcom fighting games. So it's overall a pretty fun game to play, and at least it didn't feel outdated to me, despite its polygonal graphics and sticky controls. Just remember, this isn't a button masher, it's more of a technical game, but you don't need to be that good to stand a chance. And by the way, this is the game where Sakura comes from. Number 3. Crash Bash. This is pretty well known, but it's the one most people didn't play out of the several Crash games on the PS1. It's an extremely fun but also extremely hard game that will kick your ass regularly. The more players the better since it plays like a party game. You can battle in the different minigames against each other or by teaming up with another. The downfall, the reason why some people don't love this game, is that you have to play the story mode to unlock the rest of the minigames. And story mode just so happens to be quite challenging since the game asks you to get all the extra challenges done. But I'd say unlocking a couple of areas is enough fun for you and your friends to have a blast. So, like I said, I believe it's best played this way, as a multiplayer adventure even when in story mode. Solo mode is fun too, but it will be more frustrating therefore. Overall, despite its difficulty, it's very addictive to play, because it's just so good. It keeps you trying again and again until you eventually succeed. I think it deserves a modern remake or remaster like Crash Team Racing did. Number 2. Vandal Hearts. Vandal Hearts is more of a hidden gem than anything for the casual gamer, but for us who play JRPGs, even though it's still niche, it's a fantastic game that needs all the love it can get. It's a grid-based strategy RPG with a variety of objectives throughout its several maps. Every one of them will have you doing something different and kill all enemies. As you can see, it's somewhat violent because of the blood splatter, which raised some red flags back in the day, you know. Also, the story is quite dark and mature, definitely not the average plot you see in JRPGs. And you've probably already noticed the game's not anime styled. Konami was so edgy back then that most of their games needed to be different. I'm glad they made it this way, cause it was a breath of fresh air from all the manga tropes out there, and it still is nowadays. It didn't get a lot of love back then when it first was released because of the controversy regarding the blood, but still, I think it holds up masterfully nowadays. I've covered this wonderful gem to death on my main channel, so I believe most of you are already acquainted with it, even if you haven't played it. Well, what are you waiting for? It's among the most criminally underrated games on the system. Number 1. Suikoden, the first one. The series has gained a lot of popularity over the past few years. This one is the beginning of it all, and the one whose marketing failed miserably, mainly thanks to that horrendous cover. Most people are familiar with Suikoden 2, which gave some small mainstream success to the franchise back in the day, but it is precisely that game that always overshadows the first one. A lot of people skip this one even though it's a prequel in terms of story. Sure, it has different characters and plot, but it's deeply connected to the events in 2. In any case, it's underrated because gamers never really gave it a chance. It's a short adventure that you can beat in less than 15 hours, or perhaps a bit more if you decide to recruit all characters. The 108 Stars of Destiny. About half of them are playable and can join your party, although for certain missions, some will be mandatory. The goal is to build your castle base and increase your army so you can take down the oppressive empire. You already know the game has 3 battle mechanics, the regular turn-based, which you saw before, the duels and the strategy battles. The duels are pretty simple but great to play with a rock-paper-scissors mechanic based on guessing what your opponent's action will be. In the war battles, you give commands to a short selection of platoons so they can fight it out with the enemy. The same triangle system applies here. This is an absolute must-play in my opinion. If you think of yourself as a fan of RPGs, you need to play it to see where one of the most influential JRPG series ever started. Alright guys, those were my picks for today's video. If you know more underrated games on the PlayStation, let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends. See you next time!